Our next project is to make a cedar forest like this one. This forest, believe it or not, was made only about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's over a meter tall. I think it would be like 1.2 meter tall. And at the moment it has only got 8 trees in it. It had 9, but never mind. 8 is a very lucky number for the Chinese, so I don't mind having an 8-tree forest. And I'll show you how we're going to set about doing it. I have some more trees, not exactly like this, but we can make it grow like this. So this is the first shot of what the ultimate object is, and we will set about making it. So here we go. So this is the raw material that I'm going to work with, and this is going to be a big group like the one I show you. The one I'm trying to recreate consists of big trees. So these trees have been growing on the nursery from small 1 and 2 year old seedlings for the past 20 years. So these are 20-year-old trees. And because I didn't have the heart to cut it down, they've become tall. I did cut it in 1 or 2 places. Like there, I kept cutting that one. So many of them have been topped. As you can see, this one has been topped over there and topped over there. So they keep growing. But nevertheless, it's still a bit tall for what I have in mind. So let's see how we will deal with all of them. So I don't want to confuse you because every tree is different. And although they don't have low branches, trees in a forest don't really need a lot of low branches. So we should be okay with them. Now let me start with some of the bigger ones. Let me get these out of the way so that it won't confuse you. Let me start with, say, an easy one. Now this, I would say, is an easy one. And I can see that there's a potential leader there. There's a branch coming out there. Some of these branches can go. When they're wired down, they should be okay. So I will just do a bit of trimming. A lot of people think that I work too fast, but don't worry, I'll slow the pace down if it helps you. Now, because it's so tall, let me bring the tree down. And I'm going to use a very strong piece of wire to wire that leader upwards. It has been cut at the top, that's why it's growing like a spiral, like a cartwheel there. So that can be taken up. The ones that can be wired down, I will wire down. I love cedar because they are evergreen. Many people confuse it with the larch when they grow in the summer because the foliage is very similar to the Japanese larch or even the European larch. But these are evergreen. So this is the last day of January and we can still see that things are growing ever so well. So tree like that. Now sometimes if it's hard to bend it up, I'm going to do a split at the top of the tree and then take it up. I can even do a little wedge cut like a cake. And then I'll have to use quite strong wire to wire it upwards that way. So let me show you what I do. I have another type of aluminium wire, which is not proper bonsai aluminium wire. This is the industrial aluminium wire, which is used for all sorts of purposes like welding and all that. I may use that in a minute because it is a much stronger wire, but since this tree is not going to be complete for at least a couple of years, I might use that just to demonstrate the efficacy, that means the efficiency of that type of wire. I like to show people all these different options that are available. I still remember in the days when we didn't have bonsai wire, we used to use overhead electric transmission cables. Because I used to work for the generating board in the UK, I used to buy it second-hand from the stores that disposed of the wire. They didn't have any more use for it, so it was sold off by the ton. I used to buy it by the ton. So there you are, I'm trying to bend that up. So I've just brought some of this clear aluminium wire, and this is only like 4.5, but I reckon this 4.5 is as strong as the 8mm in the anodized, and this one is like 10mm wire, and it's really very strong stuff, really strong stuff. So this is the sort of stuff that we can resort to, but just to prove a point, there's still another branch there. I'm going to use this clear aluminium wire because I think it is more effective than the proper bonsai wire. So again, I'm revealing some secrets, because what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to always use the proper aluminium bonsai wire. I remember when I went to India to teach, they didn't know where to get wire from, and all I did was go to some of these hardware shops in the old part of town, and there were these aluminium wire which is used for industrial purposes, and there was no excuse for saying that you can't get the wire. So I'm now going to use a double on this. The use of anodized wire has been fairly recent. I remember when we used to do bonsai back in the 1980s, it was quite hard to get bonsai wire, but I believe it was being used. And even in the 60s, don't forget, after the war there was hardly anything going on in Japan. Most of the Japanese growers used copper wire, so aluminium wire was not needed. And aluminium wire, I would say, started coming into use, I would say, from the late 60s, I would say, or early 70s. Prior to that, everyone used copper wire. And those who are familiar with the commercial bonsai that come out from China, most of the trees, including the Chinese elms, the ones which need wiring, are all wired with iron wire. And iron wire is used because it's cheap, easily available. It rusts, but it does the job. As long as it does the job, it doesn't matter. Aluminium wire is a luxury. Oh, that is really effective. I've got the leader going right up. Certainly more effective than the brown wire. Look at that. Look at that. It's got the apex now. I'm going to wire these down. So I'm going to show you in detail what I'm doing to each of these trees. And once I've done that, I'll just show you a few of the others, because all the others are going to be fairly similar. Not only is it hard to bend, but it's very hard to cut. So this is really effective wire. So although these are pretty stiff branches, I would reckon that in about a year's time, this wire would have set the branches in position, and then we can try and remove it after about a year. Many people ask, how long do you have to leave the wire on? And the answer to that is, it depends on how thick and how old. The older the branch or the trunk, the stiffer they are, so they take longer to set. So there's no hard and fast rule, but I would say at least a year Sometimes it can take more than that. You maybe even need 4 or 5 years. So the 2-branch principle, we always anchor a branch and then take it up to the top. If you can wrap it around the trunk once or twice, that always helps. And if there are any snags, we take those off. Now this one is on its own, so I can still wire that. So there are 1 or 2 instances where you have to break the 2-branch principle. I don't call it a rule, as you say. I don't like rules. I never say anything as a rule. It's just a principle. And the 2-branch principle makes it easy to wire. But where you get a single branch and it's too far away from other branches, you have to make do with the situation. And there are many things you can do. You can either wrap it around the trunk, so the trunk acts as the second branch, or you can wire it back on itself like this, and then take it out. So we've broken the 2-branch principle by using a 1 branch, but we are still making an anchor. So don't forget that the 2-branch principle is really an anchoring device. And as long as you can provide the anchor, it doesn't matter how you've achieved that. So that's what I've done. And then, because I've done that, I still want to take the wire in the right direction. So I have to come back on myself like this and take it like that. You can see the detail, what I'm doing. So that's how I've done a single branch on its own. So as we say, it's not rocket science. As long as you can devise a method to suit your particular situation, it's okay. Main thing is to keep it neat. The secret of good wiring is neatness. Okay, now let's put it up on the bench and see what the tree looks like. Now this, because it's got a branch, this side is going to be used as a branch, not as a branch, as a tree for the outside of the composition. So this is the tree that we have now produced. And this is going to be used for the right-hand side of the group. So this is what it looks like, and I'm going to now do all the others like that. There are so many, I think it's going to be a bit tedious to show you each and every one of them. It'll take up too much video time. Now let's take one of these ones. This is a relatively young one. And you can see it's a nothing tree, look at it. It's going all over the place. So I need to bring the leader back like that. So what do? I will take that leader up and wire the other branches down. Simple. Now to decide whether I use the cheap aluminium wire or the strong aluminium wire. I think that may be too strong. No, it would work. Let me give it a go. So I'm going to take it to the top there. Now let me see where I can anchor it. Very hard to use. It may be a cheaper wire, but it's strong, but very hard to bend. very spiteful on the hands. I think when I come to unwind this wire, they're so difficult to bend, it's all going to be very difficult to unwind. I may have to just cut the wire and not save it. Let's revert to the softer aluminium wire, proper bonsai wire. So I'm hoping to make this group an 8 or 9 tree group, so there's quite a lot of wiring to do. See, all these little ones have to be wired as well. No, that's okay. I think I've done enough. Now let's show you what this tree looks like. So if you can just look at that, you see that's the form I've created. So these are the 2 trees I've just wired, just wiring the branches down. So as I say, I've got to do another 7 trees. So they're all different. They're all different. Some are easy, some are difficult. Let me just show you one more and then I will stop, and then you will just have to imagine that I have done them all. Now this is a difficult one. Let me do this difficult one. Look at this one. It's so gangly and sprawling. Look at all these long branches. What can I do with it? You know, I can't do much with it. See, if you've got a tree like this, the only thing you could really do is to air layer the tree. And if I wanted to, I could air layer it from here and get a very nice bonsai from it. But no, I'm going to use it for this forest. So, and cedar, by the way, does air layer quite easily. So you don't have to wait very long. They will give you the results within a year. And I've done that to many of my cedars. So with these long branches, let's cut it back to there in case I could do something with it. I don't know. Don't cut too much in case I regret. I might be able to do it like that. That is very long. Now this one is going up there. I can make it a shorter tree if I cut it there, but I don't think I need that. Put it there. These will be used for gins, if I do indeed need a gin. I'm not a great lover of gins. I think many people will realize that by now. And that's going to be wired. And I'm going to wire this. So they're all wireable. So we will end up as a tree in the same form with sloping branches. Some of the wood is so hard and old that I need to use a locker. Okay. So these are all going to be wired. So believe you me, I'm not going to do any cheating. I will actually wire them all, and we will see what comes from that. I think this could end up with this tree either in the middle or on the left hand side. So these are all wireable branches. This one, because this is quite an interesting tree, and because it's interesting, if I had done it on my own and not shown it to you, you may not get the benefit of my decision making. Now this tree, this is going to be the top there, okay? But I could also use this as the leader. So I don't always have to use that as the leader. I can use this as the leader or use that as the leader, depending on the height of the trees. But considering all the other ones, I would probably go for the other option. So remember, I could use this as the leader going up this way, or I could use this as the leader and then take this up this way. So these are the different choices I have. Okay, if I use that as the leader, now this is a crossing branch, so straight away I don't need this one. This is kicking back on itself, so take that out. Now this can be bent down, this can be bent down, this can be bent down, this can be bent down. Now this one is rather thick, so do I want this one? Probably not, because this and this is very close. That is a bar branch, but no matter, it's not a problem. But this is very thick and difficult to bend. If I bend, okay. Now what I was wanting to show you, that sometimes when you find it very difficult to bend, you can do a little cut underneath the branch like that. If you use a branch cutter, the straight branch cutter, not the knob one. This is a straight branch cutter, and this is the hybrid cutter. I don't want the hybrid cutter, I want the straight branch cutter. You use that like this. You cut a little nick underneath here. It's like the armpit under the arm, for want of a better analogy. So we're cutting under the arm. There, that will give you space for it to bend down like that. So when it bends down, it doesn't have to fight against that space. So that makes it easier to bend the branch. Same with this one. You see how difficult that one is to bend. But if I made a little nick underneath the branch, like so, give the armpit more room to move, that makes it easier to bend. Okay, so that's a little trick I thought I would show you. Okay, now that one is too thick. I don't think I need it, but so that's what I've done. Okay, so that makes it easier to bend. So let me just show you with a piece of wire, just to prove that I'm not cheating. Oh, that one is that long. I'm still going to use this thick aluminum industrial grade wire. When you do the two branch principle, always start by giving an anchor. That means I anchor this and then take it round the trunk and then go outwards and then do that. Where you have dead branches, like this is a dead branch here, and it's no use, you're not going to make a gin, get rid of it. If you leave it, it makes wiring difficult. So all these dead little bits take off. It'll also help the branch to heal better. Oh, this is really difficult wire to use, but it does the job. I think it's like using iron wire. I've never used iron wire, but I believe it is very difficult to handle. And these poor women in China who make these commercial bonsai, it must kill their fingers. So far, this is really just a wiring exercise. nothing more. So these are the first two branches. That I will also wire like that. And then I will wire these. I might as well do the whole thing since I've started it. I wasn't going to show it to you because I thought it would be very boring. But I'm always very pleased that you always console me and say that nothing I do is boring. So thank you very much. Okay, I can wire these two. They would look nice. So let's wire these two. I'm now going to still use the cheap wire, the cheap industrial aluminum wire. So you must be asking me, why don't I use this wire more often? I don't use it more often because it's a very difficult wire to handle, very difficult wire to handle. It's more difficult than handling copper wire. Very spiteful on the hands. Now, I should practice what I preach. I should do a little cut underneath because they're quite thick. You can also do with a little saw, but don't let the saw get you carried away, because if you use a saw with great enthusiasm, you may cut the blooming branch off. So do be careful you don't go too mad. That's one reason why I wouldn't advise using the saw, but you could get the same effect with a saw. But just exercise caution. So this is what we call cutting under the arm to bend branches. So this principle you can apply to all your other bonsai as well. If you get a situation like this, you can undercut. All trees have different growth habits. The cedar grows in a different way from the pine, grows quite differently from the larch and the yew. So the more you work on different types of trees, you get to understand how they all grow in different ways. The satisfaction of wiring is that once it's done, it will set in place for a very, very long time. I know that you've got to rewire from time to time, but it will stay in place for quite a long time. Now, you see that all these straggly bits, I can make another layer like that, so it doesn't have to be on the same plane. They don't always have to be on the same plane. So let me just show you as an example what I mean. See, I've anchored that branch. Now I can proceed to do this. So don't try and just wire one branch completely without anchoring. Unless you anchor it, it's very hard to manipulate the rest of the branch. See how small the needles are. It's the beauty of the cedar. There is a type of cedar which I may have mentioned before called the Cedrus brevifolia. Brevifolia means small foliage, and that in fact grows in Cyprus, I believe, and that's a lovely, lovely cedar to use. So I've done like 2 branches coming down like this. So you can go one there, one there. So we still haven't decided which is the front. I think we're going to use this one, wasn't it? going to use that one. I can still decide. And I use that one, this one. There's so many branches, I can even use that as the leader. I can use that going up that way. Now this is very close to all these. You see there are 3 branches there. So I think even making a gin may not be that useful. I think if I bring this down, I can test it. This should be okay. So I don't need this one. I can use it as a gin, but I don't like the indiscriminate use of gin. See, that would be a gin, but that may be over-egging it. Those of you who understand the expression, you can over-egg a pudding. And then this one, do I need this one? I might need it at the back. I could do this to the back, to this, so I can use it like that. So don't worry, so that, although it's going up that way, it can be used like that. So do I need this? This I think is too close. So let's get rid of this as well. I will just get this done as a gin and see how it looks, but I can assure you, I don't think it'll look right. So that's going to come down there, this is going to come down there, and that's going to be the leader. So you can see how the tree is coming along. So each tree is almost like a bonsai exercise in its own right. So I'm anchoring that branch and then taking it out to the next one. So reinforcing the learning process and then make a little cut underneath. What we call the underarm effect. I think this gin is annoying me. Let's get rid of it. Get rid of it in a minute. See, my hand slipped, it nearly took that branch off. Goes up. So this I'm going to wire like this. What do with this? Now this long branch, if I use this as the front, I'll keep it for a while. When I put it together, I'll decide whether to use this or not. But this also, this seems a bit long, but I can still do it. But I'm just wanting to show you a little technique. I mentioned cutting the underarm cut, but rather than use the branch cutter, I'm going to use a saw to show you the technique. So as I said, you've got to be a bit careful using the saw. So, I need to go a bit back. So I'm going to just, with the saw, cut a little angle there. Just cut a V cut underneath. and then that will make it easier to bend. Same with this one. This is very thick, so I'm going to make a little cut over here. So you can see what I've done. I'll cut away over there like that. That makes it easier to bend. Okay, so that's all I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to wire it, and I don't need to show you that. So we will proceed with those. So I'm going to show you where we've got to. So that one is finished. This one we've done. This one also we've done, so that's 3. This we've done 4. I think we've barely worked an hour, so this has been done. That one has been done. So this one has been done, this tall tree. So this is going to be the principal tree, the main tree. So there are 2 more trees. I thought I'd show you what goes through my mind when we do this. Now this tree, these are nice branches to have on the side. So the obvious thing to do is to use this as the leader, wire this down. Wire this down, so that's going to be the leader, and these are going to be the side branches, so that we're going to wire this one like that. Now this one is a pretty tricky one. Let's get these out of the way. Now this one, because of the kink here, you know, how am I going to use it? In a forest, in a group, all the trees should be straight. So let me go and place it so that if I use it in the group, it will have to be like this. Rather than showing it this way, we are going to show it with this as the face on. So this is going to be the front of the tree. So I could either use this as the leader or use the back one as the leader, whichever I wish to use. So why take all the trouble to make decisions? Let's get rid of this one cut. Get rid of that. There you go. Take that off. Now all these can be wired down as branches. That's going to come down like that. This is going to come down like that. And this is going to come down this way. This can be, now that I think is too much. You can get rid of this. These can be wired. And the leader somewhere there. And this is going to be the tree looking at it this way. So there you go. So in another half an hour, we will be able to put all these together. So there we go. Now, we are about to pot the trees in here, but I'm going to show you the soil I'm going to use. This is some of our spent compost, nothing wrong with it. And it's a mixture of coarse bark and peat. I'm now going to mix some Hyuga soil. This is very expensive Japanese soil called Hyuga. It's nice and open texture. And then I will use some Japanese volcanic grit as well. And this is the sort of open texture soil I want for cedars. Cedars and pines are fairly similar, so that should be okay. If I wanted to, I could have just used ordinary soil like that, because if you look at the soil of the original trees, this is just ordinary compost. So I always say there's no special soil needed. Bonsai soil does help the trees to grow better, but if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. Okay, now we're going to try and put them together, and because this is a big pot and a deep pot, the trees will get a chance to grow nice and strong. And we're now going to arrange it very roughly to see where all these different trees will sit or relate to each other. And the thing is, I'll have to now get all the trees together first. So all we are doing is removing some of the soil. You can see what beautiful roots are there. This is the soil that has come out. This is the original soil that we've used. So nothing special, as I say. It's just a mixture of sandy loam, peat, bark, and some grit in the soil. And they've grown so well. As I said, they were 1-year-old seedlings about maybe 20 years ago. Can't remember exactly. Okay, now let's put them together. So we've got 3, 6, 7 trees, magnificent 7. I could put more, but I think 7 is probably enough. So I've already put 3 of them there. Now, because this tree is this funny shape, I want to place it so that it looks vertical when viewed from the front. So this is where I wish I had about 4 or 5 hands, but not to worry. So I'm working, this is the front, the camera is looking at the front of the tree now. So it's a tangle of branches, but I know it will come good. I'm just going to temporarily tie some of the trees together so that they don't fall apart, because I don't have 4 hands to work, and with all this social distancing we've got to stay apart. So the principal tree or the biggest tree is always towards the middle, and the lesser trees are at the side, and I want an overall conical shape. Although the pot is so large, this pot is only barely big enough to fit all these 7 trees. So this forest has got a different character to the one that I made 10 years ago. But everything is different. We don't have to have it identical. I keep putting it and then going back to see now. I don't want that triangle to be broken, so I need to get the tall trees at the back. See, there's so many branches that we can't appreciate the structure of each individual tree. So that's the problem I'm having here at the moment. Let's see if I put this there, what will happen. See, the trouble is I'm trying to force all these trees in, when in fact it may not be the right combination of trees. So I mustn't fall in the trap of just using everything that I have here. I can always find something else to use. The beauty is if these are not right, I can go to the field and see if I've got any more trees that would fit the bill. I think that should be about right. I think we can always adjust the branches, cut some branches off or whatever. You can see the advantage of not having low branches. So although these were straggly trees with mainly branches at the top, they are ideal subjects for making the forest. So as we say, there is always method in my madness, and these seemingly useless trees are ideal for making the forest. I think with just a little bit of arranging, they seem to have fitted in well. I know that I can cut some of the branches off that are intruding. See, like that one, that belongs to that. I can cut that off completely. So if I'm happy with the general arrangement of the trees, I will now support them. That was easily done. How long did it take? Hardly any time. I will now put some soil so that it can support the trees. So to put the soil in, let me just bring the shovel. And you can see this is the easy part. We're just going to shovel soil in. Please remember that this is not the final pot by any means. This is really only the training pot. And because it's not filling the pot quite deep, I can see that eventually it can go in a fairly shallow pot. But for now, while it's getting established, certainly for the first year, it's going to remain in this pot. Let the roots mesh together. And then we'll see how it gets on. So we've now put the trees together, and I think the overall triangular shape works. And as I mentioned earlier, we didn't need the low branches, so that works as it is, like that. And we can then decide whether we keep all the branches or remove some of the branches. So the rest is what we call fine-tuning. So the rest is fine-tuning. So that is as far as we've got. And if we can come closer, I will then show you some of the fine points that I'm going to talk about. Now, this is only a training pot. This is not the final pot by any means. So the final pot is going to be much shallower. So I've deliberately kept the soil low so that you can see surface roots. And now that I'm fairly satisfied with the relative position of all the trees, so to make sure that the trees don't get out of position, I'm going to tie them in by taking the wires round each tree, like so. Don't forget, these wires are only going to stay here about a year. I'll keep an eye that they don't bite into the trunk. You may be wondering why these trees are so large, but I've always told you that I have a lot of customers who have the space in their gardens and they're not averse to having these large bonsai. Right, so we've got so far, and we've arranged the trees. This tree I've guyed down, this branch. I won't get rid of this just yet in case I need it. And all that I need to do is probably make some fine adjustments. And I need to remember that these trees will continue to grow, and as they grow I can then trim it as I wish. So there is no rush. I'm going to get a lot more growth in the coming year. If anything, there are far too many branches on this, but just as well. So the 7 trees are here. Right, so we've got so far, and we've arranged the trees. This tree I've guyed down, this branch. I won't get rid of this just yet in case I need it. And all that I need to do is probably make some fine adjustments. And I need to remember that these trees will continue to grow, and as they grow I can then trim it as I wish. So there is no rush. I'm going to get a lot more growth in the coming year. If anything, there are far too many branches on this, but just as well. So the 7 trees are here. Each tree is nice, like a literati almost. Can you get the whole thing in? So this is where we've got, there are some confusing branches at the back. Again, I'm not in a rush to cut it off. I think I can cut one of them off because it's a bit confusing here. A little more wiring to that tree. So this is what it looks like. And that is just in 2 hours. That includes wiring all the 7 trees and potting it up. It's taken us just 2 hours on a Saturday. And let's follow the progress during the coming year.